Come on, man. You're at a 10. You need to be at about a 6. What's a line? And a line is all the possible answers to an equation. It's kind of the same thing. Shh, zero noise. All right, lock it in. Logan, talking to you. Yes, sir. If you need to be there, I'll put you there. Lock it in. So a line is all the possible answers. The table you create comes from finding possible answers. So a table is a few possible answers. That's how we can kind of guess where the line's going to be. So that's why we do a table, to make the line on the graph. So that's tied in together, the equation of a line, and there's a bunch of them, but there's an equation of a line that would allow us to graph it in a different way. So creating the table, we said, always works. If you have an equation and if you can figure out values that would make the left side equal the right side, values of x and y. Remember, the x and the y's are the solution. The slope, the m, the b, which is the y-intercept, those things are not part of the solution. They're just something that just information about the equation, information about the line. But the actual numbers that are the answers are the x's and the y's. That's why we can put those on the graph, because the graph has an x and y axis. So we use the x-axis to find the x number, the y-axis to find the y number. Those are the answers. So for example, for this line, that's an answer to the equation. And we could create the equation using that y equals mx plus b. I think I did it the other day, right? It goes y equals 4/3 x. Because the y-intercept is 0, right? So we talked about y-intercept. That wasn't on the bell work today, but you were absent. We said the y-intercept is where the line goes through the y-axis. Well, it's going through 0, right? This y value is 2, then 1, so the y value is 0. Well, we could write plus 0 at the end of that. So b is the y-intercept, we said. I'm doing a fast review since we are losing time. I haven't even gotten to number 2 yet, but I'll just write that in there. Your slope is the m. So again, you need to understand x and y are possible answers. I don't ever write what x and y up. I tell you what those two variables are. I never say anything about x and y, but again, they're the answers. There's what you would, they'd either be in the table, all the table values are x and y's, or the line is x and y values. So that x and y value is 3, 4. If I wanted another answer to that equation, well, 0, 0 would work. Anywhere that line, any point on that line is a number that would work, of x and y that would work. We said down here would work. -3, -4, that would work. Those are all answers. Now, everyone in between is also an answer. But we can't necessarily tell what those numbers are, because I don't know exactly what x and y is right there. I could make a pretty good guess, 1.2 and 1.6 or something like that. But I can't tell exactly where those are. So we said, this is the last lesson or last class. This is what we did. You're going to do it again today. Finish it up if you didn't finish it up. Then add one new piece, which is what I'm trying to get to. We said, well, what if the line, so we wrote an equation. I didn't do any math. I didn't plug anything in. I just said, well, I know the y-intercept is there. I did figure out the slope. If you don't know how I got the slope, remember I said, well, the slope is the rise over the run. So we do that kind of thing for rise and run. So my run is 3. My rise was 4. That's how I got the slope right there, using the rise and run formula. There's also a formula. So here's the answer to number 2, second part. Thank you. This is the equation for slope. So write this down because you're going to need it today. I mean, you should have it written down actually from last class too, but that's the equation or formula for slope. Second, rise over run is 1, but we normally just use that for graphing or when we have a graph. Today, you're going to do it without a graph. So you're going to need that one, equation. And I think that's on your reference sheet. Actually, maybe it's just the geometry reference. I'm not sure. All right, so super fast review. I know I went through it quick, but we got to do one quick review problem and then one new problem. Any questions? All right. So last class, what we did, I think I've got another graph. Yeah. So we said, all right, well, what if we get a line and we want to write the equation of that so I could still figure the slope out. I could say, well, yeah, my slope, again, I'm just picking points on the line that are going through corners so that I'm pretty sure what the x and the y are. I know this point right here to this point right here gives me a slope of 4/3. So same slope. So that's pretty easy to figure out. Like if I want to create that y equals mx plus b thing, then I need to add on the y-intercept. But we said, well, wait a minute. I can't tell what that y-intercept is. It's not going right through like a spot that looks like it's an easy y value. Like the other one went right through 0. That's above 0, below 1. I don't know what that is. There's a way to solve and figure it out. We said if we have, so we don't know what that is. So it's a variable, just like y and x right now are variables. What did we say we could do? Does anybody remember this? Back in my career choices. We need to solve for b. In order to do that, that is the only variable that can be in the equation. We need one variable, one equation. So I need to somehow get numbers for x and y. Justin. Yeah, Justin saved us last time, or saved me last time from worrying about my career choices. These are all x and y values. Remember, every point on that line is an x and y value. And they're answers to whatever equation we're going to wind up having. They would be answers to that equation. So I just needed to go to my line. Sometimes they actually just give you the point. Like they'll say, what's the equation of a line that goes through point 2, comma 4? So that point right there. So they won't give you a line. They'll actually say it goes through that point. They give you the x and the y. So that's an easier version. I'm actually doing a slightly more difficult because you've got to figure out or really remember, well, how in the world do I replace these two? If I want to solve for that, how do I replace those? If they give you the x and the y, I hope you realize that's what you use because there's frankly not going to be anything else in the problem to use, but that's all you'll have. But if they don't give you that, if they have like a line, you've got to remember, well, these are all x and y's, so I can pick any point. I could have used -1 and -1. I use positive numbers just because they're typically easier. So I take these values, x and y. I replace y with 4 because that's my y value. I still have the 4/3. X is 2, so I'm saying times 2. And then plus b. Now we just solve it out. So 4 is still over here. This became 8/3 plus b. So we subtracted 8/3. Did we use calculators last time in here? So you can do fractions now in the calculator. So 4 subtract 8/3 should not be an issue at all. So our final answer was b equals 1/3 or 0.3333. 0.3 repeating is really what 1/3 is. And that made sense because that's just barely above 0. So that made sense that it would go through 1/3. Not sure why you're playing with that. But... So our final equation then, and this is the way your final equation should always look. You have y equals. That will always be there in your final answer. You'll have a number for the slope, which shouldn't be too difficult to figure out. I just gave you the formula, and the formula will work anytime you have 2 points. Sometimes they're just giving you the slope in the problems, so you don't even have to figure anything out for the slope at all. And then plus, and I'll write it as a fraction at the end. So that's the final version. You will always have x and y in the final answer if you're treating it. Come on, man. And somebody else is leaving. 50, so you're about 10 minutes. So I'll show you real quick. You'll see enough to at least know what you're responsible for next Monday. Any questions on that? Super fast, but remember it's recorded. I'll post it certainly sometime over the weekend. I don't know if I'll get it up today. So if you are given a point, here's your book problems. They give you this. So instead of giving you a graph, they would, instead of making you figure out the slope, they just tell you if a line goes through point 2 comma 4, so they give you that, and they say, and it has a slope of 4/3, and then they say, write the equation of that line. So that's all you have to do for the first, I think it was 8 problems maybe. You don't have to calculate out slope. You don't have to figure out which point to use. They just give you those two things. So you just plug in the slope for the slope. This is your x and your y, just like it was when we did it from the line. So you plug those in, and then you solve for the variable b. And so that was the first part, and that's what I'll be doing on your quiz, that part right there. You'll have problems just like that. All right, next, I think I'm just going to, oh no, actually, hold on. So there, like that, that's what they'll give you. That's what we did in class, last class. For those of you that weren't here, I gave you a point, just gave you the slope. You had to solve for the b value, and then you write your final equation with x and y, and then the m, you replace the m and the b. Here's what we're doing today. Today, they're saying, all right, I want you to solve for a slope, but they're giving us 2 points. I'm sorry, solve for the equation of a line, but they're giving us the 2 points. They're saying, well, what if a point went through 4 comma 2, or I'm sorry, what if a line went through these 2 points? And then it goes through -3 comma -6. I want you to create an equation of a line for that. But today's a little tougher. They're not just giving you slope, not giving you the x and, well, they are giving you the x and y. You can choose either of these. So these will be the ones that you'll wind up replacing x and y with. So now the only thing different really then is we got to find the slope. That's why I gave you the slope formula in the beginning of class. So we've done this before, so it's not super, super difficult or different. X1, Y1. So you could have labeled this X1, Y1, this X2, Y2, doesn't matter. X2, Y2. So there's step 1. So we're calculating out the slope. So you need to be writing this down. Write this problem, and this is your example to work through today. You'll have about 25 minutes to do at least 2 or 3 of these. Otherwise, you're on your own because you're still getting quizzed on it. They pull you out for this stuff. I'm not changing my lesson plans. I already did this lesson yesterday with the other class. I'm not delaying it a whole week. That's just ridiculous to do this on a second part of block days. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know anything about that. I actually did look him up online. He needs to update his website because he talks about his new book he's about to publish. It'll be out in February of 2009. Well, we're like 13 years. So apparently his website's a little outdated, which isn't a good sign, but he's probably fun. I don't know. All right, so now you just plug it into that formula. So this is the slope formula. So I'd always write this down. Some of you are trying to take shortcuts and you plug stuff in the wrong spot. I would write that down. Then I would just go from my points to my equation. So y2, -6. I'm not even making this interactive. I'm just doing it for you so you have an example to use. Remember, the subtraction sign is part of the formula. You cannot get rid of that, even if the number in the x and y is negative. So y1 is 2. So x2 is -3. Subtract x1 is +4. So whatever the number is, that's what you write there. You write subtract, and then whatever the number is. If it's a negative number, you write a negative number. If it's a positive number, you write a positive number. Now we do the math. That's -8 over -7. That's not really what I wanted to get, but that's fine. So my slope is 8/7. I really wish I would use it better. Tell you what, I'm going to change the numbers and have you do one on your own. I did not want it to come out like that. So we're gonna flip these. So now you do one on your own. Boy, let me just change all of them. I want you to have to work throwing through just the slope for now is all you're doing. So there. So now you figure out the slope. I'll leave the equation up there. So hopefully you would copy that down. If not, you can try to figure it out on your own. It's recorded again if you need to go back and watch it. So now I've already labeled it for you. I left the formula, the equation here. Try to repeat that. Didn't take long to do it, but we have a minute. You want to go ahead and go now, really quickly. Then when you get back, I'll catch you up. But the last part is just solving for the same thing we did, solving for the b value. So this is the only new part. So you just saw that.
Push it plus.
Oh, yeah, I need phone.
Push on like this.
30 more seconds. If you don't get finished, that's fine, but try to get it started. Try to figure out how to plug it up within the spots. Yeah. Are you getting 0 over 0 or something? Or what are you thinking? What did you get? What was it? Oh, yeah, yeah. How much? Oh, did you then say equals and you simplified or something? Okay, that's what it was. Okay. I thought there was some kind of subtraction in between, not equals. Yeah. All right, so again, this is your process. Label it x1, y1, label it x2, y2, write the formula down so you don't make simple mistakes. Now just plug stuff in. What's my y2? Subtract. What's my y1? What's my x1? I'm sorry, x2, sorry, x2. 4, subtract what? So now this is what? What did I just solve for? What is that? It's the slope, right? Don't forget what you just did. That actually is just 2. So our slope is just a whole number, not a fraction this time, 2. That 4 divided by 2 is 2. So now I know my slope. I have 2 points. So now it's just like the problem we did a second ago. I can use either one of these. My slope is 2. Either one of those I can use for my x values. I'm going to choose the 2 smallest ones. They'll just probably make my math a little easier. You get to use calculator now, so math should really never be an issue. And then I'm going to plug in and solve for b. So here's the formula, y equals mx plus b. I want to solve for b because I'm trying to write it an equation in this format, and that's what I don't have now. I figured out the slope, but I still don't know that. So I need to plug in something for all 3 of those. Well, the slope I know is 2. I just solved that. I'm going to choose the first x and y to replace x and y. So what was it? 2 and 4 or 4 and 2? 2 and 4. So y is 4. X was 2. The same thing we just did in the problem before. So if I solve this, I think this is actually what happens in some of your other problems. Last class. So now subtract 4, subtract 4. So if you want to solve for b, you need to get rid of the 4. So we subtract 4. If I do it on that side, I do it on that side. All right, man. See you. This is recorded if you need to go back and watch it. So that's my Y